Welcome, everybody, to the Revenue Problem Solvers podcast, where we crack the code on growing your business by tackling the challenges that keep revenue leaders up at night. I'm Carl Ortmans, and on today's episode, we're going to dive into a pretty fun and meaty topic. The topic is win rates. Now, today's podcast is sponsored by Virtual Causeway. Virtual Causeway is a B2B go-to-market partner who helps you generate more qualified leads, speed up your sales cycle, and grow revenue, all without adding headcount. You can learn more about them at virtualcauseway.com and mention the show for a special rate. So before we jump in, here's why today's conversation matters. Imagine implementing just one strategy from today's discussion and watching your revenue metrics shift within weeks, not months. That's exactly what our goal of the podcast is. Let's talk about the revenue challenge that others have faced and how they solved it. As I like to say, success leaves clues, and we're going to highlight those clues for you today. Now, with me to talk about this topic, everyone, admittedly, it's a big one. Anthony Iannarino. Anthony is somebody who has been an influence in my selling career as I've followed him and I've learned from him for many years. You likely subscribe to his content on thesalesblog.com. If you don't know Ian, he's an entrepreneur. He's a sales leader. He's an international speaker and he's a best-selling author. Most recently, he just wrote a book called The AI Edge. It's this one actually right here that I have that I'm reading with his good friend, Jeb Blount. I could go on and on about Anthony. However, he's so well respected in the sales industry that I'd just like to say this. Anthony, it's truly an honor and welcome to the Revenue Problem Solvers podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So let's try to solve some of these revenue problems, shall we? To kick us off, could you share with the audience a little bit about your world? There's some context. What's your world look like? What verticals, industries you work with? What are the selling motions? What size companies are you engaged with?
All kinds. So this is one of the things that's difficult. So I was in staffing, and staffing is like the most commoditized industry that you could ever want to be in. At one point in Atlanta, there were 600 light industrial staffing firms. That's a lot of people. So it's very, very hard to find a way to get through all that because everybody's already got a staffing firm. So I learned very quickly that the conversation that I had was different than other people's conversations. And mostly because I was very early in sales. When I was 15, I got a job doing a nonprofit who was doing bike-a-thons. I was the only person that got a deal. In fact, I got two. And then I got a job at a skating rink where there were a lot of girls the same age that I was at 15. And they said, please don't leave. And I said, I'm not going to be doing this. I'm doing something later. By 17, I was in my family's staffing business, and I was doing enterprise level deals then. So I won the Limited, I won Victoria Secret, I got DHL. I won a lot of very large clients. And I think it was just because I was just going to keep calling until let me in. They did. And I had some very good clients for a very long time. Now it's very different. So when you do one thing and you know it really well, and then you get to another industry. So when people come to me, I don't know their industry. So I have a whole bunch of prompts so that I can get, let's say, caught up with the industry. So I have a whole bunch of prompts that I use so I can understand their challenges, their opportunities, and it makes it really easy for me to have a conversation because I did my homework. And I will say, if you're watching this and you don't do your homework, you should start doing your homework. So I want to know everybody I want to know the people. I want to know what their problems are. I want as much information as I can. I'll go out and look at LinkedIn, try to find everybody, try to see what they did in the past. So I had something to talk about. And I think most people don't do that. I think they just go have the conversation. And I think they don't think enough about the preparation that you have if you really want to win a deal.
I agree with you completely. The preparation is what separates you many times. And actually, one of the things that Noah Sturm, and it's you mentioned the prompts, and I'm guessing that was an impetus for you and Jeb to write the book, The AI Edge, of how do you get all that information? Because prior to AI, it would have taken you. It would, and for me personally, I've said it used to take hours and hours, and I know from talking with you the level of detail you go into. I could only imagine. I would guess it would take you a couple of days to prep for a really large meeting.
Absolutely. Yeah. You want to have a perspective. And I think when you do your research, you can find your way to a perspective that would be helpful for the client. So that's what I'm always looking for at the beginning. What kind of insights do I need to give them? And I'm not just looking for insights, I'm looking for non obvious insights. So I'm looking for something different than other people. So it's easy to get an insight, but it's better to have a non obvious insight. So I'm looking for something that is new to them. That's how you get space in their head, because you're giving them information that they didn't know, and that causes them to think that they're being, well, I'm creating value for them. That's what I'm always trying to do. That's the number one thing for me for a tactic and a strategy, is to create value in the sales conversation.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll say it this way. Something I learned from talking with Noah Sturm, and I'll say it this way. He was on the podcast a few episodes ago, but we were talking about the world of AI, and his comment to me was, Carl, expertise is going to win now, because
Mhm.
you can get all the information very fast, but you have to have a perspective, and your expertise going into it to meet with that prospective customer, giving them a point of view, connecting dots that maybe they don't see because they're so deep in the weeds. That's the difference that you have to make today. And
That's right.
so I want to sort of bring that connection point, because it seems, and by the way, I know that me at 15 and 17, I was not closing enterprise level deals. I was playing sports, trying to get to university. So Anthony, you had a career amongst more than many. But let's talk a bit about the preparation, because I think it ties really nicely to evolve into this. Because and how this all came to be, Beth Mastre, um, who was gracious enough to suggest this. She said, you need to talk to Anthony. You and him would get along really great. And I messaged Anthony. He was gracious enough to agree to come on. So we were doing our prep. I asked you, I said, hey, what's a topic that you're interested in? So I said, what's a revenue initiative that you've led, that you've been super successful with, or a challenge you're trying to solve? And you're pretty clearing to look at me, and you said, I'm most passionate about win rates. And
Mhm.
so if we can sort of blend some of that preparation into the win rates topic, maybe we start there. How come you're the most passionate about win rates? What is it about this topic that has you the most excited?
Let me just give me a couple minutes to do this, okay?
Yes, sir.
Everybody has to do prospecting. They have to, right?
Yes, sir.
They have to. They're going to have. I don't believe that there's objections anymore. I think it's more concerns, and you have to do something about those concerns. You've got to figure out how to get consensus. You have to do that with more people than you would want in a room. I can tell you that. I mean, last one I was in was about 14 people. That's a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
and it's difficult. So all of these things are important. All of the things that you know about selling, like discovery, all these things, those are things that all are good. But what are we trying to do? I don't want to think about the tasks I have to do. I want the outcome. And what is the outcome when we have a meeting with a client? The outcome should be, for all of us, is winning that deal, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
For
And
many. Yeah.
yeah, that's what we are trying to do. Or we're trying to get a second meeting, maybe two, if we have to, depending on the complexity of it. So I focus on how do we get to the outcome? The outcome is difficult. It's more difficult in this time than any other time that I've been in sales, and I've been in sales for a very long time. You've got so much indecision. You've got people who are afraid that if they make a decision and it's wrong, then their status inside the company is going to go down quite a bit because you made a mistake on something like that. I think that there's a lot of people that they would be happy not making a decision. And so I'm going to tell you in the future, I'm going to write a book about decision making because they're having a very difficult time. And I've got a 60 or so tactics to use, not all at the same time, the ones that are going to fit for the conversation that you have. So we're just in a difficult time. Right now, budgets, the economy's not perfect. It would be better if it was better. That would help us.
Mm-hmm.
So I think right now we just have a lot of headwinds, and the headwinds are making it difficult for salespeople to succeed right now. And part of it, though, is because a lot of people in sales have been taught and trained in, let's say, approaches that are no longer worth doing. I mean, there's a whole bunch. I can tell you, I have a lot of reverence for Sandler,
Mm-hmm.
not their content, but the way that they went around of getting people to go out and do this and do the training for them. I think the content's not right, but the model is a very good right. I think that's right.
Mm.
And I think that we're in this time right now where people are going to have to change what they do. So I'm using Sandler because Sandler started in 1967. That's close to 60 years ago, right?
Yes, sir.
That's the year I was born. Born in that year. So there are people that are still doing things that are 60 years old. Now, when we think about 60 years old, black and white televisions, no internet, no Starbucks, like none of these things are there. So this is a long time ago, and people think that you should still be doing what worked in 1967. And I think Sandler was right. It worked for him at that time, but it doesn't work in this time.
Mm.
It's not the same kind of thing. And all these tie downs that they use, it doesn't work for people anymore. So we have to have a different conversation and a different approach than most of what we've done, including discovery. I got to tell you, if I have somebody come to buy or to sell to me and they start asking me about my problems, I'm like, why did you ask me for a meeting? You must know that you have something that could help me, right? And I think this discovery is it makes you look like you don't know what their problems are already. So I would remove that and say I'm not going to ask about what the client's problem is because I'm here to fix that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's a better approach to know that they have a problem and know that you can give them the strategic outcome because that's what you're really going to do. So, and I'm going to tell you, Carl, how many things do you sell?
Right now,
Yeah,
well, only one.
one. Okay. So then you should be really good at it, right? Because you're doing that same thing. So when you ask, like, tell me about your problems, you should probably say, I'm here because I think I can probably help you with this
Mm-hmm.
result that you're looking for, right? And what is that for you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And admittedly, I wouldn't, I agree with you. I think that's where expertise and curiosity have to come into play. I would
right.
never sit down and go, Anthony, can you tell me about your problems? I would leverage, and how I would like to operate is I'll do enough research that I have a perspective and say, Anthony, typically when I talk to folks like yourself, you're typically looking at solving one of these number of challenges. From spending time with your team, they've highlighted these things. However, I'm not in your seat. Or am I even close?
Hmm.
And that's to me more of the curiosity. Am I even close? Because sometimes I might tell you all of that stuff and you go, that's great, Carl. You did your homework. But you know what? Those things, not even top of my list. Do you know what's top of my list? I've got a facility, a $70 million facility that's being built that's 7 months behind. I've got this, this, and this. Whatever you're talking about, it's not a key priority, but I'm interested to learn and hear from you.
Right.
So I maybe sort of took it off your ski, but I
No,
agree with
you're
you
fine.
of taking that approach of going in and saying, here's my viewpoint. I do this all day, every day. This is the only thing this is my day to day. I think about these problems that I'm solving all day. And I know, Anthony, you have way more things on your plate. And the chances of you spending any time thinking about it was the 15 minutes before this meeting,
True.
right? Because you have a different view. As an executive, if you're going in to sit with those larger executives, I had to learn this the hard way in my career. And I'm maybe being a little bit more, everybody should be listening more to you than me. But I had to learn this the hard way in my career. As much as I've interacted with others inside the organization, my opinion at that time was, okay, you know what I'm doing. I can quickly jump into the context of what we're doing. Well, I was wrong, because you know what happened? And this is what the president said to me. He goes, Carl, if we're meeting for an hour, I'm going to prep for a half an hour. If we're going to meet for 30 minutes, I'm going to prep for 15 minutes. I'm going to prep for half the time of our meeting. That's where my focus comes. If everything's going well, that's where my focus is. That half of the time of the meeting is where I'm going to come in. And guess what? At the end of the meeting, if I know you got it, I'm closing the book and I'm pivoting to something else. And guess what? I don't think about anymore. This topic.
Right.
And so that was a lesson learned, because I went in thinking, I talk to you regularly. You have an idea of what we're doing, but I didn't consider there's a $500 million business that they're also talking about. They're talking about these things. There's an expansion, there's M&A, there's HR, all of these different things. And me, I don't know, maybe it's being a little bit facetious or believing that I was more important than I was wrong. And I had to learn. And he said, hey, look, like, give me enough context so I understand, but don't give me all the details, and move on. So I don't know if I'm close of what you were trying to get at, but that's like that's the immediate thing that I think about.
I think it's right. I think that there's a lot of things that people don't get right. And I think that if you can have the clarity and the confidence and the certainty, then I think that you have a chance of having a better job getting a win rate. That's what you need to do. So I get to see people do this because of what I do. And there's no clarity. It's they believe that the client already understands the product or the service well enough, and they don't. And there's a whole bunch of challenges when you do something like that. Also, there's a
Sorry.
lot of shallow discovery at all. Like if there is any, it's shallow.
What do you mean by that? Is it just, oh, that's interesting, Ian, and Anthony, I move on to the next thing? Or is it, I'll just use an example. Hey, Steve, I want to know about this topic. I want to know about this challenge you're solving. Oh yeah, it's costing me some problems, but it's worth it.
Yeah,
It's okay. And then I move on to the next thing. Is that what you mean by the level
yeah,
of shallowness?
yeah. The questions are shallow, so the answers are shallow, right?
And so is it a problem statement you're seeing across these companies of going, what does that mean? Or can you tell me more about this? Is the problem statement the curiosity that's missing, do you think, or just the skill set just isn't there?
I think they want to move. What I get to see a lot is that they want to just move forward as fast as they can, and that's I'm going to tell you right now. And I can tell you for as long as I've been doing what I've been doing, everybody wants to talk about velocity. How are you going to get velocity with 14 people in a room? You're not going to get velocity. And I would tell you, you're better off going slower, giving them more time, because they're, again, uh, indecision. So they just can't make that decision very easily. So when you decide to go faster, I can tell you your win rates are going to start going down if they're not already down. You have to give people more time now. There's more people in the room. They want more conversation. They want greater clarity. They definitely want you to be confident that you are going to be able to help them. And they're looking for certainty. And I don't think that people talk about certainty enough, but that's what they want. They want to make sure that if I make this decision to buy from you, this will happen and I will get the results. That's what they're looking for. And I can tell you the last big deal I did was $7.5 million, 3 years. I did that in June, and that's a big deal. It's just a big
Congratulations.
deal.
Yeah.
So that is, if you don't want to give them the time because you think that you can get the deal across the line faster, I'm going to tell you it's not true. They're going to, but they'll probably just put their hands up. I'm not getting what I need. If you don't give the buyer what they need, you're not going to get a win rate. The
That's
win rate is
that's a challenge I'm seeing more and more. The buying committees have grown to a place where it's larger than ever. There's more technology involved that's talking to multiple systems. You have people that care about different things. When you're in those rooms with the buying committee of 14 people, how do you navigate it so that you can position yourself for success? I know you talked about certainty, but do you try to isolate each one? Do you talk to each one individually? How do you manage that group?
I wish that what you said was true, but most of the time they talk to each other. They
Huh.
talk to each other quite a bit. I mean, in the one that I was in, I was sitting next to a guy, and we had a nice conversation, and other people were just talking to each other, and it was 2.5 hours. That I was there 2.5 hours. At the end of that, they said, "We can't have you back next week. But the week after that, we want you to come back and give us another 2.5 hour." And I went, okay, that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
They had, there was only 12 people there, by the way. That was 12. But I'm thinking, how expensive is this meeting? There's 12 senior leaders here. How do you, that's a lot of money
Yeah.
that was sent on 2.5 hours. It didn't need to be 2.5 hours for me, but it was for them. And it was mostly asking some questions of me, but also talking to each other. They're trying to figure things out. So that's what it's like now. I mean,
It's coming back to the topic you said is certainty. It sounds like inside that room, they needed to know within that time of certainty. And then they want to bring you back and go, all right, is he going to tell us? And I'm just guessing. Anthony's going to come back. Is he going to tell us the same thing he told us once and actually live up to the things he's going to say that he was doing? I'm guessing that there was a certainty involvement in there.
yeah, absolutely. They they told me at the end of that meeting that they looked at every other company in Columbus, Ohio, and they couldn't buy from any of them. And that was a part of this because we do things so different. It was easy for them to say yes.
They couldn't buy from them because they couldn't get the certainty from them, or they couldn't buy from them because they just didn't think that they were there, or they couldn't buy from them because they believed they were outside their core beliefs.
That they didn't believe that they could give them the results that they needed.
Huh. Interesting. I mean, that's where the expertise and the certainty comes into play. But if I tie this back to the topic, because you talked about win rates, and one of the things when we were doing our prep, and if I can sort of open the curtain a little bit, but when we were talking, doing the prep, you asked me, you said, "Tell me your win rate, and I can tell you exactly where you are."
Mm-hmm.
And that's admittedly it's stuck with me since we've chatted, Anthony. What would that mean to other people? So if it wasn't you and I doing this, and you were meeting with somebody else and they said, "Hey Anthony, I've got a 23% win rate." And you say, how would you diagnose where
I would start praying for that person.
okay. So how would you help them diagnose where their challenges are? And maybe give a little bit of context, if you can,
So
of what that statement means. Tell me your win rate and I can tell you where you are.
yeah, I can tell. So if you tell me you've got 23, I'm going to say that's about average for enterprise. That is, it's right there. It's between 21, 23.
Mhm.
That's what the data says. And that's it. So I know if you're there, then I know that you do not have a good sales conversation. You probably don't lead the client. You probably don't have the clarity that the client needs from you. And I'm certain you don't have the certainty. If you don't have the certainty, then they don't have the certainty. I know all these things to be true. In my businesses, two of three have an 85% win rate.
Okay. Just I want to reiterate that. He just said 85% win rate.
Right.
Not 25, 35,
Well,
55,
I said
85.
I said two.
Two.
The third is about 23. It's new, and we don't have them where they should be. But these are people who have been in the industry for a long time. They are very, very good salespeople, and they just win at a very high rate. And we have a different conversation than other people have. And I think that that is the differentiation. And I don't believe that people understand the whole thing is the conversation, right? What else do you have?
There's, well, for some people, they will just tell you, I'll just do a demo and show you everything. I'll click every single button. And it's almost like getting on a ride at an amusement park, right?
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Please keep your hands and seats inside. Sit back, relax, enjoy the ride for the next 23 minutes. And when you're ready, just say, I don't know, and carry on. But so maybe there's a question there that I can ask, because my curiosity is here. It sounds like, from what I heard you say, two of your three businesses are further along in their journey. So the targeting, the ideal customer profile, the ideal customer persona, you're very, very targeted and definitive on what that is.
Large clients.
Okay. And then the third one, if it's 23%, it almost makes me think that you're newer and you're figuring out your go-to-market motion, etc.
That's right.
So if somebody else is listening to this and say, well, Anthony told me I should be at an 85% win rate in order to be world class. I'm just saying it like this way. But I'm at a 23%. But you know what? I just started my business 4 years ago. etc. I'm growing. It's improving. How would you suggest for them to think about evolving from 23 to 85? Because that is a journey.
That is a change to their approach. Their approach is a 23% approach. What they're doing is getting 23% with the approach they have now. If they want to go from 23 to, let's say, I'd like to see them at 40.
Okay.
And how do we get to 40? We have to change the conversation. It has to create more value for the client than they're getting with the 23% right now. And so they're going to have to make some changes. And if they do, I can just tell you one person from NASDAQ was in one of my programs. And at the end of the year, he told me that what I did with him and his team, his commission was $300,000 higher than it was the year before, because we changed the whole conversation. And then I will tell you the bad part about this. That's $300,000. That's what he had. He bought his wife a beach house, and he sent me a coffee cake. And I'm like, she got a house, and I got a coffee cake. And he said, well, you can use the beach house anytime you want. I haven't taken up on that, but
That's very funny. Uh,
true
So
story.
well, it's yeah, I get it. Yeah. Um the question I have for you now is if I want to evolve from that, and like you said, like to get from 23 to 40 or 45% as an example, who do you typically suggest people to be involved in that conversation? Is it just the sales team? Is it sales enablement? Is it product marketing? Is it the entire company? Is it a whole new sales trainer, a new methodology? I'm going into gong calls or whatever. How do you start that?
First, you have to watch salespeople sell, so you can figure out like what's in the conversation and is there any value. Because a lot of people just want to talk about their company, their solution, their clients, and that's still a legacy approach, and it doesn't do anything for the client. They don't feel like that's value. It used to be value. I can tell you, in the 80s, in the beginning of the 90s, you would just say, I'm going to tell you about my company. I'm going to tell you about my clients. I'm going to tell you about our solutions. And that's a legacy way of going about trying to get a deal. It doesn't work anymore. Nobody wants that. I will tell you though, at some point, people are going to get tired of all these insights and they're going to say, just please pitch me. Just like, I mean, I've had too many people come in here and talk, just pitch this thing for me so I can say yes to something, right?
Well, history does repeat itself. And so it's just when does it repeat itself?
It's going to go around, right?
Yeah, and you're right. Now with the emergence of AI, like if you haven't read his book, I'm like I say, admittedly, I had it, I had the book Anthony before we started talking, so I have had that, but I'm halfway through. But there is this notion of like when you're on the internet now with these LLM models, you can review every written word that's ever posted online if you give it the right prompt. So people now are expecting you to come in knowing about their company, about some of the things they're doing. What used to take hours and hours and hours of sitting and reading S1 reports and reading annual reports and reading all these different things, you can now have those with some prompts in minutes. I'll say minutes, not seconds, because it does take some time. I do like this notion of the AI sandwich, AI or the human. So you go human, then AI, then the human. The human has to say what to do. The AI goes does it, then the human has to validate. I do like that approach, and
That's
I've
right.
been
Yeah,
using that.
that's right.
And so now when you go into these companies and you want somebody to go, hey Anthony, I know that you have these two businesses, I know you have this, I represent this, and my every single day I bring these level of insight, so I'm going to teach you something ideally that you don't know, because those days of the NASCAR slide is what it was joked about, right? You had you had all your logos, look at all the logos that I've closed, great, which one am I, where do I fit in, who do I look at?
That's exactly right. The person's like, I was hoping that you were interested in us and not those other companies right now while you're sitting across from me, right? Maybe we talk about us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's happens quite a bit.
There was one gentleman that I got to work with. He was the chief sales officer. What he did, he had a whole unique style, and I'll leave it at. But he put names with logos up on a screen, and you said, "Look, I understand you're solving these things. Which story do you want to hear about?" And people are like, "Oh, tell me about, I don't know, for sake of discussion, FedEx. I'll just pick a company. Tell me about FedEx. Okay, let me tell you. This is the person. This was the challenge. Here are the things that they were worried about. Boom, 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 boom. And here's all the things we did, and here was the outcome. Does that resonate?" And it was pretty interesting to see. So that whole idea of flipping it on its head, of maybe that's something that comes back, because now I'm guessing that when people go into meetings now, they're probably going to take their LLM of sorts and go, who is this company that I'm meeting with? What do they represent? Who do they compete with? I have a little bit of context going into the meeting, and I'm going to listen to hear what you have to say. But then there's the pitch. What are you trying to get across, and what is that aspect? So how do you teach people from that perspective to go into those meetings and into those into those selling motions, do you prompt them to say, you're going to meet with these numbers of buyers, prepare for these different things, you need to have a standardized talk track? How do you evolve them from that 23 to the 40 with the buying committees we're seeing today?
It's hard all around, but I can tell you, if your conversation creates value, and that means like they're learning, they're learning. So everything that you said, except a non-obvious insight. So I do think that that is an important part of this. It should be something new to them. If they already know a whole bunch of things because they've already talked to a bunch of people, I think you want something that's different. And a non-obvious one is one that they won't already know. So that's like, if you've got it and it's true, if it's true, then you can use it.
And that non-obvious one is you're connecting the dots for them to show them,
Yes.
hey, is that what you mean by that?
This is what's really going on.
Okay. So if I'm somebody that's listening and I've heard you talk about these win rates, where would you suggest them to start with the sales conversations? Would you have them go do ride-alongs? Would you have them go and
Oh,
present? Would you suggest that they go and actually run some sales cycles? How would you advise them?
well, what I tend to do in workshops is I find the person who's got the best win rate. Why wouldn't I? And
Right.
then I'm going to say, I'm your client, and I want you to give me the conversation in front of everybody. So and there might be, I don't know, 200 people sitting there, and I make them come down, and then we go through the conversation, and then I ask them, how close is that to how you're doing it? And they're like, not like that. Uh, I had two in the last one, and both of them were really good. But all they have to do is take that conversation and learn how to use it. And I wouldn't let them do it with a client. I would say, you're going to do this with people in this room, which is what I make them do, so they can get used to it. And I don't think that they should do that without having practice, because the first time you hear the conversation, you're not going to remember it. So you have to take notes, and then you have to have them practice it. When I give people the idea of an executive briefing, I tell them, don't use it. Go to your friendlies, like the clients you already have. Give it to them first because they already know you and like you. So do it there, so you don't botch it up when you do it for the first time. But if you go do it with your clients, it's easy to give them the briefing because they like you already.
Hmm.
So that's that. And then you can go out and talk to strangers.
There is an element that I've seen in my career, and maybe this is something for you to touch on. Some of the best people are involved and they want the coaching, right? Like I think it's Nick Saban said, average players want to be left alone, good players want to be coached, great players want to be coached hard. And those great players, and we use them as sellers, they want you to be very hard. They want you to push them because then they know that they can mess up or make the mistakes to you. You're the hardest critic. Why waste the opportunity with that company that you haven't spoken to yet? And if you fail or you botch it, you're not getting back in because that's what they remember. And I don't know if you've seen the same correlation between lower performers, just leave me alone, and great performers saying, push me even harder, show me how I can get better.
I think that that is exactly right. It's exactly right. The people who are trying to avoid having to change, that's what it really is. Most of my work, what I do is I try to get a behavioral change. That's what I'm working for.
Hmm.
I want a behavioral change in how they go about selling. So that's what I'm mostly worried about. Can I get the behavioral change for this group of people?
Hmm. I know we're right at the 40-minute mark, and I don't want to I don't want to go too much longer, but I really feel like I could ask you so many questions about this because I've enjoyed, and I feel like I'm a little bit of a nerd in terms of like the selling methodologies and the psychology behind it and all the tactics. Let's Speaking of tactics, I typically say everybody likes new, nobody likes different. And when you do both at the same time, it can cause friction or uncertainty. So for somebody who's just listened to our conversation today and they're thinking, you know what, my win rate can improve and I need to change.
Mhm.
What are the 2 or 3 actionable things that you would tell them on Monday morning? Go do these 3 things or 2 things and report to me back in a couple of weeks and see how it works. What would you tell them or have them to look for?
I have this concept that I use. It's called being one up, and it's in this book called The Elite Sales Strategies. And in that book, it explains this idea. So, this idea is because, Carl, you do the same thing every day, you sell the same thing every day, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so then that means that you have more experience than your client does. They have the conversation once with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're doing it, let's say 5 times a day, or let's say 5 times a week, and you have this very good concept about your conversation and how it's going to work for the client, right?
Right.
But they just have one experience with this, so you're one up and they're one down. And I would tell you, just so you know, it's good to be one up in this situation. But in a lot of times, it's a lot better to be one down. So, in part of your discovery, you want to be one down because I want more information from them. I'll give them the information, but I want them to give me new information so I get greater perspective in the industries. So, I'm always trying to get them to tell me how things work for them because then I take that with me. So, I'm leaving them with insights and I want them to give me theirs. And the more I would say and I know you probably already do this and you do this, you have this conversation, you got a new perspective, and now you're carrying that with you, right? And
Yes,
then
sir.
you keep doing it, and now you got 5 you got to carry with you. Now you got 11 that you got, and people say, "How did he know that this is what we needed?" Because he does it every single day. He's doing it all the time. So you just have a different perspective because you see it, they see it once, you've seen it, I don't know, hundreds of times, right?
Yeah, you would hope so. It would be that way. But
But
yeah,
they think about their experience. They don't go through. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday about their CRM, and they're like, nobody wants to use it. That is the that is the like the diary of the relationship you have with that client, and it should all be in there. You should take all good notes note and put it in there because you don't want to ask them to give you the same conversation that you've already had with them. I've already seen people do that where they're like, we already answered that. And it's brutal. Like, you should have written all this stuff down, right?
those restarts instead of build upons is what I call it. Don't restart the conversation to where it already been. Build upon the last one so that you're continually learning and growing. But
That's
yeah,
right.
uh, Ian, this has been a lot of fun. If somebody wants to learn more about you and they say, hey, you know, where would you suggest people to find you?
LinkedIn's good.
Okay,
Thesalesblog.com, and you can sign up for the newsletter if you want to. And those are the best 2 places.
awesome. Well, it's been a lot of fun today, and I appreciate you doing this. So let's if we wrap up, let's wrap up and carry on. So let's wrap up today in another episode of the Revenue Problem Solvers podcast. I want to thank you, Anthony, for sharing these incredibly invaluable insights today. These are strategies you can put into action tomorrow. If you found value in today's conversation, please like and subscribe to wherever you listen to the podcast. And also, if you subscribe, you never miss an episode. If you have feedback on how it can be better, or there's a topic you want to talk about, I'd like to hear from you. If you want to be a guest, please let me know. Thank you for investing your time today with us. Remember, success leaves clues, and every revenue problem has a solution. Sometimes you just need the right conversation to find it. Until next time, it's Carl with the Revenue Problem Solvers, helping you turn obstacles into opportunities. Thank you for being with us today.